One of the most difficult truths a man can face in marriage is that love alone is not enough to sustain desire and respect over time. Many husbands believe that because they are loyal, because they provide, because they stay committed, attraction should naturally remain. But human beings are more complicated than that. Respect and desire are not static achievements. They are living dynamics. They must be maintained, cultivated, and renewed through who you continue to become. Think carefully about the beginning of your relationship. Your wife was not attracted only to what you had. She was attracted to who you were. There was likely something about your character that stood out. Perhaps it was your ambition. Perhaps it was your confidence. Perhaps it was your sense of direction, your ability to make decisions, your willingness to take responsibility, or the energy you brought into the world. Whatever it was, there was something about the way you carried yourself that communicated strength and potential. Now here's the uncomfortable question. Are you still that man? This is not an accusation. It is an invitation to honest self-examination. Because one of the greatest mistakes men make is assuming that the version of themselves that earned admiration 20 years ago will continue, earning admiration today without growth. But life doesn't work that way. The world changes. Circumstances change. People change. And if you stop developing, you gradually become disconnected from the very qualities that made you attractive in the first place. Psychologically speaking, people are drawn to vitality. They are drawn to movement, to purpose, to evidence that someone is engaged in the process of becoming. There is something deeply compelling about a person who has a reason to get out of bed in the morning, who is pursuing meaningful goals, who is confronting challenges voluntarily rather than avoiding them. That kind of energy creates respect because it signals competence. It creates attraction because it signals life. Many men make the mistake of focusing almost exclusively on changing their wife's behavior. They ask, how can I get her to desire me again? But that question often points in the wrong direction. A better question might be, have I become someone worthy of admiration? Because admiration is one of the foundations of lasting attraction. People struggle to feel desire for someone they no longer look up to. That doesn't mean becoming arrogant. It doesn't mean dominating others. It doesn't mean pretending to be someone you're not. Quite the opposite. It means taking responsibility for your own development. It means improving your physical health. It means pursuing meaningful work. It means developing emotional stability so that you're not constantly dependent on external validation. It means becoming reliable, disciplined, and trustworthy. Philosophically, this is rooted in a simple principle. Human beings are at their best when they are moving toward a meaningful aim. Without purpose, people drift. They become resentful. They become passive. They become smaller versions of themselves. But when a man commits himself to growth, he changes the atmosphere around him. His presence becomes stronger. His confidence becomes more authentic. His relationships improve, not because he is demanding respect, but because he is embodying qualities that naturally inspire it. And here's the remarkable thing. When you focus on becoming stronger, wiser, and more capable, something shifts. The desperation disappears. The neediness fades. You stop trying to convince people of your value because you're busy creating value. That transformation is often more attractive than any technique or strategy could ever be. Your wife may not notice every small improvement immediately, but she will notice consistency. She will notice purpose. She will notice the difference between a man who has given up on himself and a man who is actively building a meaningful life. Because at the deepest level, respect is rarely demanded, and desire is rarely negotiated. Both are earned through the person you choose to become. And the question that matters most is this. If your wife met you for the first time today, would she admire the man standing in front of her? If the answer is uncertain, that's where the work begins. Once you begin the difficult but necessary work of rebuilding yourself, something else becomes clear. Strength alone is not enough. A marriage cannot survive on competence, responsibility, and discipline if emotional connection has quietly disappeared. Many men are genuinely confused by this. They think, I work hard, I provide, I solve problems, I do what needs to be done. And yet they feel their wife becoming more distant, less affectionate, less engaged. What they often fail to recognize is that while practical support matters enormously, human beings do not live by practicality alone. We live in a world of meaning, emotion, and connection. One of the deepest psychological needs any person has is the need to feel seen. Not observed, not managed, not fixed, seen. To feel seen means that another person is genuinely paying attention to your inner experience. They are interested not only in what you do, but in who you are. They care about your fears, your frustrations, your hopes, your disappointments, and your dreams. And when people stop feeling seen inside a relationship, they often begin feeling alone, even while living under the same roof. This is where many marriages begin to suffer. Not because of dramatic betrayals or catastrophic failures, but because of gradual emotional neglect. Conversations become functional. Discussions revolve around schedules, bills, responsibilities, and obligations. The relationship becomes a business partnership designed to manage life efficiently. Everything works on the surface, but something essential starts disappearing underneath. A woman may not always complain about this directly. In fact, many people struggle to articulate exactly what feels wrong. They simply experience a growing sense of emotional disconnection. They feel unheard, unimportant, invisible. The challenge for men is that our natural tendency is often to solve problems. When someone we care about expresses frustration, we immediately search for solutions. We want to repair the situation. We want to remove the obstacle. While that instinct is understandable, it can sometimes create the opposite effect of what we intend. Imagine your wife sharing something difficult about her day. Before she has fully explained how she feels, you offer advice. You suggest a strategy. You explain what she should do next. From your perspective, you are being helpful. But from her perspective, she may feel as though her experience was rushed past rather than understood. Understanding must come before solutions. That requires a very different skill. It requires listening not simply to respond, but to comprehend. It means becoming curious about another person's perspective. It means asking questions instead of immediately offering answers. It means tolerating the discomfort of uncertainty long enough to truly understand what someone is trying to communicate. There is a profound form of respect embedded in that process. When you listen carefully, you are communicating something important. You are saying, your experience matters. Your thoughts matter. What is happening inside you deserves my attention. That message has enormous power. The philosopher Martin Buber spoke about the difference between treating people as objects and treating them as subjects. Objects are things we use, manage, or categorize. Subjects are living beings whose experiences possess value and meaning. Healthy relationships require that we continually remember the humanity of the person standing in front of us. And this becomes increasingly important over the years. The longer we know someone, the easier it is to assume we already understand them. But people are not static. Your wife today is not identical to the woman you married. She has changed through experiences, challenges, victories, disappointments, and growth. If you stop being curious about who she is becoming, emotional distance begins to emerge almost automatically. Real intimacy is not built through grand gestures. It is built through sustained attention, through small moments of genuine interest, through conversations where both people feel heard, through the willingness to understand before being understood. And perhaps that is the deeper lesson here. Love does not disappear all at once. More often, it fades when people stop truly seeing one another. If you want your wife to feel close to you again, begin by offering her the rare gift that so many people long for and so few receive: your complete attention. Because when someone feels deeply understood, they no longer feel alone. and connection begins where understanding starts. As emotional connection begins to return, there is another issue that many men must confront, and it is a subtle one because it often disguises itself as kindness. It is the tendency to seek approval at the expense of self-respect. On the surface, it can look noble. A husband avoids conflict. He says yes when he wants to say no. He suppresses his opinions to keep the peace. He constantly adjusts himself in the hope that his wife will be happier, more affectionate, or more appreciative. His intentions may be good, but the long-term consequences are often destructive. Why? Because relationships are not strengthened when one person gradually abandons themselves. One of the great psychological realities of human nature is that people need to know where they stand. They need to know that the person they are with has a center, a set of principles, a stable identity that does not disappear under pressure. Respect emerges when people encounter someone who is grounded enough to tell the truth, even when the truth is uncomfortable. Many men mistakenly believe that being agreeable all the time is the same thing as being loving. But those are not the same thing at all. Love sometimes requires agreement. It also sometimes requires disagreement. Love requires honesty, and honesty demands courage. Think about what happens when a man becomes excessively dependent on approval. His decisions are no longer guided by what he believes is right. Instead, they become guided by what he thinks will produce the most favorable reaction. Over time, he loses touch with his own judgment. He begins negotiating away pieces of himself. He avoids difficult conversations. He remains silent when something genuinely bothers him. And while this may reduce conflict temporarily, it often creates resentment internally. Resentment is a dangerous force because it rarely remains hidden forever. It accumulates quietly. It grows beneath the surface. Then one day it emerges through anger, withdrawal, bitterness, or emotional distance. What appeared to be peace was actually avoidance. This is why healthy boundaries are so important. A boundary is not a punishment. It is not a demand for control. It is simply a clear expression of what you will and will not accept in your life. Boundaries allow relationships to function because they establish mutual respect. Without them, confusion replaces clarity and resentment replaces trust. Now, when people hear the word leadership in the context of marriage, they sometimes misunderstand it. They imagine dominance, authority, or control. But genuine leadership has very little to do with controlling other people. Genuine leadership begins with self-mastery. Can you manage your emotions when circumstances become difficult? Can you remain calm during conflict? Can you make decisions based on principles rather than fear? Can you tell the truth respectfully, even when it risks disapproval? Those are the qualities that create genuine strength. Psychologically speaking, confidence is not the belief that everything will go your way. Confidence is the belief that you can handle reality, whatever reality happens to be. That distinction matters enormously. A confident man does not need constant reassurance because his sense of worth is not entirely dependent on external validation. He values connection, but he is not controlled by the fear of losing it. And there is something deeply reassuring about being with a person like that. Stability creates trust. Decisiveness creates security. Emotional maturity creates respect. Many wives are not looking for perfection. They are not expecting their husbands to have all the answers. What they often long for is a partner who can stand firmly on his own feet. Someone who is capable of listening without collapsing, disagreeing without attacking, and leading himself without needing constant approval from everyone around him. The paradox is that the more desperately you seek respect, the more elusive it becomes. Respect tends to emerge when you stop chasing it and start embodying the qualities that naturally inspire it. When you speak honestly, when you establish healthy boundaries, when you take responsibility for your choices, when you act according to your values rather than your fears. Because in the end, the strongest marriages are not built by two people who avoid tension at all costs. They are built by two people who have the courage to be honest, the maturity to remain respectful, and the strength to remain themselves. And that strength begins the moment you stop asking, "How do I keep everyone happy?" and start asking, "Am I living in a way that deserves my own respect?" That is where true confidence starts, and that is where lasting respect is born. Once a man begins rebuilding himself, reconnecting emotionally, and establishing the kind of confidence that comes from self-respect rather than approval-seeking, there is still another challenge that every long-term relationship eventually encounters. It is not a crisis caused by conflict. It is not a problem created by betrayal. It is something far more ordinary, and because of that, often more dangerous. It is the slow accumulation of routine. Human beings are creatures of habit. Habits make life manageable. They allow us to build careers, raise families, pay bills, and maintain stability. Without routine, life would quickly become chaotic. But there is a paradox hidden inside that truth. The same routines that create stability can also gradually drain vitality from a relationship. Think about the early stages of romance. Everything feels new. Every conversation reveals something previously unknown. Every experience contains an element of discovery. There is anticipation. There is curiosity. There is a sense that something meaningful could happen at any moment. Over time, however, familiarity increases. Responsibilities multiply. Work, children, finances, and daily obligations demand attention. Before long, many couples find themselves operating almost entirely within predictable patterns. They wake up, complete their responsibilities, discuss practical matters, watch television, go to sleep, and repeat the process the next day. Nothing is necessarily wrong, yet something important is missing. The psychological problem is that attraction is deeply connected to attention, and attention is naturally drawn toward what feels alive, meaningful, and novel. When life becomes entirely predictable, people stop noticing what is directly in front of them, not because they no longer care, but because familiarity causes perception to fade into the background. This is why many couples mistakenly believe they have fallen out of love when what they have actually lost is a sense of engagement. From a psychological perspective, meaningful relationships require both stability and exploration. Stability provides safety. Exploration provides growth. If you have exploration without stability, you get chaos. If you have stability without exploration, you get stagnation. The healthiest marriages contain both. This means that one of the most powerful things a husband can do is intentionally create opportunities for shared experiences that break the automatic patterns of everyday life. Now, this does not necessarily require expensive vacations or dramatic gestures. People often overestimate the importance of grand events and underestimate the significance of small moments. A meaningful conversation during a walk can sometimes do more for a relationship than an extravagant gift. Trying something new together, visiting a place neither of you has explored before, learning a skill, taking on a challenge, or simply creating an uninterrupted time for genuine connection can reintroduce a sense of vitality that routine has slowly diminished. Why does this matter so much? Because shared experiences create shared memories, and shared memories strengthen emotional bonds. Every meaningful relationship is built upon a story. The stronger that story becomes, the stronger the connection becomes. When couples stop creating new chapters, they begin living primarily in old ones. There is also a deeper philosophical dimension to this. Life itself is a process of continual becoming. We are not static creatures. We evolve through experience. We grow through challenge. We discover ourselves through engagement with the unknown. Relationships thrive when they participate in that same process. Many men make the mistake of believing that maintaining a marriage simply means preserving what already exists. But preservation alone is never enough. A garden does not remain healthy because weeds are removed. It remains healthy because something valuable continues growing. The same principle applies to relationships. Ask yourself a simple question. When was the last time your wife experienced something genuinely memorable with you? When was the last time the two of you laughed without distraction, talked without rushing, explored without a specific purpose, or shared an experience that reminded you why you chose each other in the first place? Those moments matter more than most people realize. They remind both partners that beneath the responsibilities, beneath the routines, beneath the countless obligations of adult life, there are still two human beings capable of discovery, connection, and joy. And perhaps that is the lesson worth remembering. Passion rarely disappears because love dies. More often, it fades because life becomes too predictable for either person to notice what they still have. The antidote is not complexity, it is intentionality. Create new memories, seek new experiences. Give your relationship room to grow alongside you. Because the couples who remain deeply connected are not the ones who avoid change. They are the ones who continue exploring life together, long after the excitement of the beginning has passed.